Welcome in to another Running with the Timberwolves podcast on the Believe Sports Network. My name is Gabe Anderson, and I'm joined, as always, by Chris Emerson. Chris, how we doing?
We're doing good. We're doing good, man. We're back on a winning streak. There are some wins. We're looking nice. Big game winner.
Yeah, Julius Randle coming in clutch, and really Ant's been clutch these last two games. I mean, that three by Randle doesn't happen if Ant isn't on fire against or early on or late in that fourth quarter. And then, of course, against the Kings, he was awesome as well. But one thing I've noticed about Randle so far is I think that three at the end of the game was actually his third make, basically third buzzer beater. Now, obviously not at the end of the game, but really at the end of the quarter. Like, he had one against the Kings. I believe he had, and then he had two in that game against the Suns. So, I mean, he's been clutch.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's been around. He's been in big shots. He's had big opportunities. That's the benefit of having another guy that can be a go-to guy, a guy that can get his own shot, a guy that has enough wiggle that can take a couple of dribbles and free himself to get that shot. It's great. It's a great asset to have next to Ant.
Right. So he's shooting 50% from the field, 38% from three, and he's getting to the free throw line at pretty big points. And not even the shot at the end, which was the NBA said was a travel at the end of the day, but Julius's response was, "Hey, should have called it there. Nothing I can do about it." But really, scoring at the end of a quarter or at the end of a quarter can really be a backbreaker for certain teams. I'm thinking about, let's go back to 2022 to the play-in game against the Clippers. We're down 11 and Jaden makes a corner three and completely changes the complexion of the fourth quarter in that one. So it can really change a game.
It can. And it's one of those things where you're like, like you might play so hard, like really good defense or something like that for a couple possessions and you're really doing well. Then somebody hits a half quarter and it is pretty demoralizing, I would assume.
Mm-hmm. So let's go forward to the main question of the episode, the main question that I want to talk about. Do you think that, given a 37-year-old Mike Conley, do you think that we should sub him out of the starting lineup for a guy like DiVincenzo and or Nickeil Alexander-Walker? I have some stats on DiVincenzo. So last year, smaller sample size, I would say about 1/4 of the games he came off the bench last year, he had 70, or it's not 79, but 7.9 points per game on 38% shooting from three, making 1.8 threes a game. As a starter last year, 17.7 points on 40% shooting from three. He made 4 threes a game. So what I think those stats tell you is
there a minutes difference?
What's that?
Is there a big minutes difference?
Yeah, relatively, yeah. There is a minutes difference, but I mean, the fact that coming off the bench, he shot worse than he did coming off starting and playing more minutes and putting up like 9 threes a game and hitting 4 of them. I think that's a significant, because some guys, like, for example, Naz Reid, he has no problem sitting the beginning of the game, and we see it. Sometimes he doesn't even dribble before. He just puts up a three and nails it. It's amazing how he can do that. But some guys need to get going from the beginning, need to get the reps in right away. And like you can mention, Mike Conley, we're trying to preserve him. I know he's only playing 25 minutes a game, but he could be a nice spark off the bench. So what I'm asking is, do you like what we're doing right now with Nickeil and coming off the bench? Or no, excuse me, Nickeil and DiVincenzo coming off the bench? Or would you rather put them in the starting lineup and have Conley played more sparingly off the bench? You could still play Conley if you want him in late game situations. I just think that Conley's losing a step. I mean, he's not playing too well right now. He's shooting 31% from the field and 33% from three. What do you think?
It is going to definitely be, there's going to be a point in this season sooner than later, maybe, where Chris Finch is going to have to make that call. I don't think it's a terrible idea. I mean, I think that Dante's obviously a better player, like right now.
Right.
And Dante's also not playing great. So maybe it's something that could spark Dante. I don't really know. Like I've been saying, I'm not super. I haven't watched a ton of Dante play. I'm afraid, that maybe that last year New York was a fluke. But if we're going by that as what his norm is, something should change. And I think that maybe giving him a shot in the starting lineup definitely would be nice. He's definitely got the chops for it. Like he's a playmaker. He's always looking for Rudy. Like he gets into the paint more. I mean, he's just so much more active than Conley. I think it would be a huge asset.
Right.
And then you've got him and Randall who have a vibe. I just don't know if there's that big of a deal between starting and not. But if there is for him, I mean, give it a shot, because I don't think Conley would care if he's starting or not. And
No.
we need something to spark our, like Dante has to get going a little bit.
Although and you mentioned like maybe it was a fluke last year. He did start last year a little cold. I actually have some stats on that. Before November 15th, which is when I took the stats. So the beginning of the season to November 15th, last year, he shot 28% from three. For the rest of November 16th through the 30th, he shot 48% from three. In December, he shot 41% from three. And what did he do the first game after November 15th? He goes 5 for 10 from three. So maybe it's just a late starter, a late bloomer. Maybe he just needs a little season to go by to get his form right. And let's be honest, one of those threes against the Suns was lucky. It bounced all around the rim and the backboard and went in. But hey, you see one go in, maybe it gets your confidence going. Maybe just DiVincenzo, maybe he's just a slow starter.
It's possible. I know there's baseball guys that are historically like that. I don't know. I mean, it's very possible. I mean, there's also a lot to the fact that, him being a motion shooter and a guy that, the way that we can draw up offense for him, you need 2 or 3 other guys to be setting picks sometime in the play. And maybe that just isn't fully designed yet, but it seems like he's getting good looks and they're just not falling. I'm not really worried about it. Kind of like fairly early Anthony Edwards when he was getting what looked like good shots and they just weren't falling. It's like, well, I mean, it's a make or miss league. I assume that Dante is going to start making some more. I like what I see in him in all the other categories other than the ball falling through the rim. So I just assume that's going to turn around and we're going to have a 15, 17-point score on our hands. That's going to be a huge asset. And to answer your question completely, by the time this season ends, if we want to have our best, if it's our finishing 5 or our starting 5, I think Dante would be in that lineup.
I agree. And you started to see him mainly because he was hitting, but at the end of the Suns game, you started to see him much more towards the end of the game in the lineup on that game. So, but I do got something else for you. It's a tweet from Zach Rudin on Twitter. The Wolves' best 2 lineups so far this season. The number 1
3-guard lineups.
Yep, the number 1, Ant, Dante, Randall, and Reed. 122 possessions, a plus 21.6, 95th percentile on offense, 61st percentile on defense. Second best lineup, Conley, Dante, Reed, Gobert. 101 possessions, a plus 28.5 differential, 82nd percentile on offense, 97th percentile on defense. What do those have in common? Nikhil and Dante are in both of them.
And no Jaden in either.
Right.
I mean, I've been saying this since the trade. I think we're going to be doing 3-guard lineups. Jaden McDaniels, I don't want to make this podcast a trash Jaden McDaniels podcast, but Jesus, man, wake up. Like, I'm getting to the point where it's starting to be a Chris Finch problem for me. Like, if Jaden's going to give you 7, 3, and 3 in 35 minutes or whatever he's given us every game, like we need to eliminate his minutes or do something. Like we need to do something at that position. If I think it's like I saw at one point in the season, the top 4 or 5 lineups that we had were all 3-guard lineups. Like this is what's working. We might have to push it. And if Jaden, I know we all love him, he's a nice guy and all, but it's time to win basketball games.
Right. I agree. And for the month of November, he's shooting 35% from 3, 47% from the field. I actually like Jaden best, actually not when he's shooting a 3, but sometimes when he attacks the paint and does like almost weird a little floater, but it's almost like a full shot where he's almost like where he's leaning back and he throws it up.
Oh yeah.
That's almost his best shot.
His best shots are the ones where you're like, oh, don't do that. And then he makes almost all of them. Like they're all these awkward, like 10-footer, 12-footers, like a weird range, close, but not real close. And he kills it. No, my biggest problem with Jaden is his lack of aggression. Like, do more. Like if everyone keeps saying, oh, he's got all this talent that's untapped or whatever. Well, if all you're going to do on offense is stand in one spot, I don't want to hear about it. Like, right. And I don't want to hear fans say, well, that's his role. That's not his role. There's no way that Coach Chris Finch is like, you know what, Jaden, just stand there and let the other team's star offensive player rest, on defense so he doesn't have to guard you. But then any other time there's 5 guys in there, everyone's flying around doing something. When there's 3 guards in there, they're flying around doing something. You're telling me that there's just a wrinkle in our offense that is when Jaden McDaniels is there, just stand in the corner. It's hard for me to buy that.
Also, I mean, I hate to keep bringing it up, but you talk about a number 1 point of attack defender. Look at the last 2 games. Fox goes for 60. Booker, who's scoring like 17 points a game this year, goes for 40. Now, I'm not saying Devin Booker's a bad player because he's not. We've seen it before. But he's been struggling all year, and then all of a sudden Jaden guards him, and he goes out for what, 44, 46, and almost wins a game without Beal and Durant. So, I mean, it's just not materializing in dominant defense. Now, there's some plays here and there. He has some blocks. He makes some good steals. But on a night-to-night basis, it doesn't seem like their star player, with a small few exceptions. LaMelo Ball did not have a good game against us. Okay, that's solid.
Well, guys have off nights. I mean, that's the thing. Like, if you want to make a case for Jaden being awesome, you can cherry pick the last 3 years and find 4 or 5 games where the guy that he guarded had a real bad game. But you know what? You could do that for literally anybody in the NBA. Like sometimes guys have bad games. That just happens. But when almost 80, 90% of the guys that are the quote unquote stars of the other team have better offensive performances versus the Timberwolves than their average, that's not a good look, And I mean, yes, you can set a pick and get Jaden off of Booker, which then so Booker scores on somebody else. But my whole counterpoint to that is if it's that easy to remove an all NBA quote unquote defender, then is he really that important? If all you need is one little pick and then all of a sudden this menace on defense is off you, then that guy's not important if it's that easy to get rid of. I think we're going to have a problem there. And what's starting to be more of a problem is we don't have anyone behind him either. Like we have a real problem with having almost no talent from 5'5" to about 5'9", like that range in between there. We just are kind of missing.
Do you mean 6'5" to 6'9"?
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. 6'5" to 6'9". Yeah.
We don't have Earl Boykins on this team.
Right, for sure. Although, he's all right.
I'd take him back.
Yeah, I mean, we need something. We need to get something from the small forward position. And if that means that we have to have Anthony Edwards play small forward and go 3 guards, I mean, when we have 4 or 5 really good guards, that might just be what our look is.
Yeah. And I guess the one guy we do have other than Jaden in the 6'5" to 6'9" range is Julius Randle. But
right at the end of it. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So,
No,
I mean,
and that guy's a beast,
Mhm.
He's a beast.
What I've loved about Julius that not to bring up Cat, we got to say it, he's been having a great season at least offensively in
very good
New York.
offensively.
Yeah, offensively, he's having a great season. But Julius Randle, I love that finally we have a guy in the post that can attack smalls.
And does it every time.
You can't just put like a Drew Holiday, who's a good defender, on him. You can't put a point guard on him and expect him to bowl through him and get an offensive foul. Because Julius Randle, 7 out of 10 times, is either going to get to the basket, he's going to score, get fouled, or he's going to hit a nice little kind of fadeaway jumper.
Yep. And if none of that stuff happens, and the couple times that it, like you said, 7 out of 10 or whatever, in the 3 times that it doesn't happen, he still makes that little guard work his ass off and, beats him up in the post. And that guy doesn't want to be back there again. It's definitely you don't see teams starting out the game with a small forward or a shooting guard defending him. I mean, the only time that they put a small on him is if it's an accident, like somebody gets switched on him and then we attack it. So yeah, it's a huge wrinkle that we have, and I love it. One thing about Julius that I want to point out is the development of Anthony Edwards. I think everybody's always thought of the linear development the same as like a LeBron James or a Jason Tatum or a Luka Doncic or something like that, where he's this big wing kind of, he's not as tall as those guys, but still that same sort of presence. And we expected him to morph into this play creator also, where the ball's in his hand almost the whole game. And part of me has been saying, maybe I don't want that. Maybe I want him to only think about scoring. Like when the ball comes to you, you're looking score first, score second, score third. Don't think about running the plays. Don't think about getting guys organized. Keep it simple, kind of like what Durant would do or something like that. When we have Julius Randle now, we've got a guy that can bring the ball up and cause pressure for the defense. Like when Mike Conley brings the ball up, it's fine. He's just going to move it to somebody else and it's going to start. But with Randle there, he can take so much pressure off of Anthony Edwards, where now instead of having to bring the ball up and go against maybe some pressure or go against a guy trying to mess with him, waste that energy, he can save that on the defensive end where he can play, above average to great defense and then be also the scorer on the other side. So just that ability that Randle has to take the ball handling issues, duties away, I think is a huge asset for Anthony Edwards that is maybe overlooked, because I don't know if he's ever going to be that playmaking wing, and that's okay.
Yeah, maybe he should be looking to score first, particularly. And what I love about it is you can just throw him the ball and let him go to work, like yes. You were saying. Like he doesn't need
shot clock. That's fine.
He doesn't need 3 picks and a pass to score. He doesn't need, and I mean he's shooting 38% from 3, so he can knock it down from outside, and he's hitting timely threes as well. And people complain about the defense that it hasn't been there so far this year, but I have a stat for you. The Wolves are doing something that they haven't done since 2003, 2004 season. Okay. They currently have a top 10 defense and a top 10 offense. The Wolves have not done that since 2003 to 2004, when they finished they finished fifth in defense and 6th in offense. Right now, they have the 10th best offense and 10th best defense. We didn't do it last year. So as much as we're losing on defense a little bit, we're making up for that on offense.
And I don't think that we're losing on defense other than we're not playing well on defense. Like, obviously Karl Anthony Towns is not a better defender than Julius Randle. Or if people think that, good luck. Because the eye test doesn't say it, that's for sure. And the advanced metrics on Karl Anthony Towns definitely is not looking favorable for him this year right now. So I like what Randall's bringing us. Like, I've seen him switched on guards, and I think he does as good a job as any big can do. Like, he moves well. I mean, you're not going to shut him down if it's a stud guard, but make him work. That's about all you can ask for. So if he could give me a couple more rebounds, that'd be the only thing I'd ask out of him. But other than that, I think he's an A+ so far this season, and I'm happy with what we got. I just need to see Dante maybe pick it up some.
Right. And you mentioned rebounding. We talked about this on the past podcast. I also would like to see, as much as you want Randall to rebound more, I'd like to see the guards attack the rebound as well, particularly when you have a guy like Randall who you're mentioning can move it up the court by himself and almost play a guard. You can have more guards go after the rebound, box out a little bit, get a body on somebody, because you're not losing the ability to push the ball up the court that you would if you had like Karl Anthony Towns or Rudy Gobert getting all of the rebounds.
100%. And unfortunately, like we've kind of been saying is, when you got a guy like Jaden, who's your 7-foot small forward, and he's giving you 3 rebounds a game, those guards are going to have to pick up that slack. Like we're 4 or 5 years in Jaden's career right now. That's what he is. Like, he hasn't ever rebounded, and he's not going to probably. Like, he's a career average 3.7. This season he's 3.5. That's where he's going to be. So we're going to need Anthony Edwards to be 6. Get up to 6 rebounds a game, get up to 7. Like, it's gonna have to be a team effort. And it's always seemed to be a problem with the Timberwolves. Even when we have all our bigs, we seem to have rebounding problems. So it has to be a mental effort. And I don't know if some of it is, for a long time we were really struggling with getting back on defense, and maybe, that's what's giving up on some of the offensive rebounds for the other team, is we're getting back early. I don't know, but it definitely needs to be addressed.
Right. And a little side note to all those people who were clamoring, yelling at Chris Finch, play Dillingham, get him minutes. Did you really think that he was going to go like even a quarter of a season without trying his 8th overall pick? Did you really think he wasn't going to get minutes at some point? It's like, relax, chill out. Like, he was trying to get what he had solidified, trying to get the top 8, and then you can sprinkle guys in. Did you really think he wasn't going to give Dillingham a chance? It's like, come on.
Well, Gabe, here's the deal. We already had like 5 or 6 games by then, so it was pretty set how the season was already going to end. So, yeah, of course. I mean, yeah. It's funny. People get upset about whatever they can get upset about, but Dillingham's going to get some run, and like we were saying earlier, we've said many times on this podcast, you especially, Conley's not going to play 82 games this year.
No, he's going to play 65.
Right. So there's going to be a lot of games where Dillingham's going to be able to play big minutes if he's worthy of it.
Right, and I think Dillingham so far, he seems to have a lot of energy. I mean, he should. He's not he's playing 5-6 minutes a night. But
he's 19.
It almost feels like he's almost playing hot potato with the ball. Like, he's getting the ball, dribbling a couple times, and passing it really quick, which is good. I mean, you want a distributor. Yeah. We haven't really seen the scoring side of Dillingham yet, which I know will come. Like we've been mentioning, if he was on the Wizards, he'd be starting. He'd be playing 35 minutes a night. If he was on the Nets, he would be like the second guy off the bench.
Right. He could be the top rookie in the league right now. Right. Yeah, I mean, it'll happen. It'll come. The thing about him moving the ball quick right now and stuff, I think a lot of that is just trying not to make a mistake. Right. You know that you're in there on borrowed time. You're just like, let me just not mess this up. Soon, I think I don't know when the G League starts, probably pretty soon. He'll be down there a lot, getting, 30 minutes a game, putting up 45 points a game, and he's going to get his swag back. He's going to get his spring to his step, and then he'll come up soon.
Well, we actually just sent Terrence Shannon Jr. back down to the G League, which I guess is better than just kind of hanging out on the bench, getting
for sure. Like I want all
get him
those guys getting minutes.
right. Get him ready for the stretch run. Get him ready for I mean, obviously he could learn stuff in practice, but why not get him some game minutes? And then when you need him, someone goes down, like, hey, give him a shot. At least then he's warm. At least then he's not just sitting there.
And a lot of what I've heard of, I mean, what I keep hearing a lot about the NBA is there's really not that many practices. Like there's so much travel time and so many games that you might get a practice in a week, maybe 2 if you're lucky. So like there's not a lot of time to actually get work in. So yeah, if you can be down in Iowa playing 30 minutes a game, putting up 20 shots, that's way better than watching guys on the bench, get those reps in, like you said, so you're warm when the call comes.
Right. So let's look forward here. The Wolves play the Toronto Raptors in Toronto, which, as we know, the Wolves have not won in Toronto since the last time they had a top 10 offense and top 10 defense. 2003 to 2004 was the last time we won in Toronto.
Chris Bosh era.
That's crazy. It's just they've had our number for some reason. And now we can't overlook Toronto. They've taken the Celtics to overtime, I think twice, or they've taken them to close games twice. They just beat Indiana. Andy Dick is a good player. RJ Barrett looks solid. Actually, Jakob Poeltl,
Did you say Andy?
Andy Dick, yeah. Oh, wait.
Okay.
Grady Dick.
Andy Dick's that actor. That was funny to me.
Yeah. And then Jakob Poeltl, actually in his last 2 games, has 35 and 30.
Dude's a stud, dude. Dude's a big, strong man. He'll play you defensively. Yeah, his scoring outbursts, and I have been paying a little attention to that. It's shocking.
Right, and Andy Dick's playing pretty well too. So
yes, he is.
He's getting his good minutes. And then after that,
RJ Barrett's been out of just unconscious. That dude has been playing amazing since he got back from being hurt. So yeah, they're not going to be the bottom feeder. Maybe some of the people thought they were going to be, but I still think they're kind of playing for draft picks.
Right, I think so too, and particularly their schedule has been brutal to start the season. So we have the Raptors, then we have a matinee on Sunday against the Boston Celtics, then an NBA Cup game on Tuesday against the Houston Rockets, and then it feels like we're playing them all the time, but we play the Kings on that Wednesday. So
thought you were going to say Portland.
No, not Portland. I don't want anything to do with Portland.
That's a fun little stretch of games there.
Yeah. Because Houston's playing great. They got a lot of great players on that team. They're very deep. They're a very deep team.
When you're a young team and you don't have to pay anybody yet, a lot of times you're very deep. Once those guys that are making $6 million a year start making $42 million a year, your roster gets a little thinner.
Right. Also, to end the show, rest in peace to the Cleveland Cavaliers 82-0 bid. They have lost to the Boston Celtics, so they are now 15-1. So
the Miami Dolphins are popping champagne.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Is that the only? And I guess the New England Patriots too. Although they lost in the Super Bowl, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I'm sure NBA on TNT is disappointed that they have the Spurs on national TV and Wembanyama isn't playing.
Yeah, that's a big hit. They might have to investigate that.
Because I love more Zach Collins as much as the next guy, but
I'm not going to lie to you. I really liked Zach Collins coming out of the draft, and I think he's a solid player. But
no, I like him too. He's just not the same.
He's not Wemby.
Yeah, he's not Andy Dick either. Anyway, This is the Running with the Timberwolves podcast on the Believe Sports Network. Chris, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, no problem, man.
And make sure to like, share, and subscribe on YouTube and give us a 5-star rating on Spotify and or Apple and tell us what you think about the show. And as always, go Wolves.